In a quiet town, a little girl disappears without a trace. A single pink shoe, a swinging playground, and whispers of danger lead Detective Lily Monroe into the heart of darkness. Every clue brings her closer, and the kidnapper closer to striking again. Will she find Anna before it's too late? The rain hadn't stopped in 2 days. In a town like Coldwater, rain felt like guilt. It soaked into everything, even the things that were supposed to stay dry. By the time I stepped out of my car and into the mud-filled playground, my boots were already bleeding brown water. The swing creaked in. The wind, it was still moving, just barely, like a ghost of motion that hadn't realized the child was gone. Detective Monroe. A deputy called, holding a flashlight that trembled more from nerves than wind. "Yeah," I said, my voice rougher than I meant it to be. I'd been up all night. "Where's the mother?" He pointed toward the parking lot. A woman sat in the back of a police cruiser, arms wrapped around herself like she was trying to hold her soul together. Through the windshield, I could see her mouth moving in silent prayer. "Her name's Evelyn Carter," the deputy said. "Her daughter, Anna, 7 years old, went missing around 4 this afternoon. Last seen playing here. Any witnesses?" I asked. "Just one, a teenager walking his dog. Says he saw a red pickup near the playground about the same time." I took that in silently. In small towns like Coldwater, everyone knew everyone. A red pickup could belong to half the men in this county. I walked over to the cruiser. Evelyn didn't look up when I opened the door. Her hair was plastered to her cheeks, her eyes red and glassy. "Mrs. Carter," I said gently, crouching down to meet her at eye level. "I'm Detective Lily Monroe. I need to ask you a few questions, all right?" Her lips trembled. "Please." "Just find her. She was only here for an hour. I went to the store. It was just across the street. I swear I wasn't gone more than 15 minutes. I nodded. "I understand. Did Anna have any reason to run off?" "Any arguments lately? Something she was upset about?" She shook her head violently. "No, she's a happy kid. Everyone loves her. She wouldn't just disappear." I looked down at her trembling hands. What about anyone who might have shown too much attention to her? "Neighbors, family, friends." Her eyes darted up, suddenly wide. "You think someone took her?" "I think a child doesn't vanish into thin air," I said softly. When I left her, I walked back to the swing. My flashlight beam cut across the wet grass and glinted on something small and pink, a shoe, half buried in the mud. I picked it up with a gloved hand. The cartoon princess on the side was smudged but recognizable. Anna Carter's left shoe. The rain came harder then, like the sky was angry. Somewhere nearby, thunder rolled over the hills. By midnight, I was back at the station. The small-town police department looked even smaller under flickering fluorescent lights. Sheriff Dale was already there, leaning over the evidence board with a mug of cold coffee. "Red pickup, missing girl, no ransom note, no witnesses worth a damn." He muttered when I walked in. "Hell of a night, huh, Monroe?" "Any progress on the vehicle?" I asked, pulling off my wet jacket. He shook his head. "Half the town drives red trucks. We've got a list, but it's long." I stared at the photos we'd pinned up, Anna smiling at a school event, Evelyn hugging her, the muddy playground. My gut twisted. Cases like these never got easier. "Check traffic cams on Route 12. I said finally. "If that truck left town after 4, we might catch a glimpse." Dale nodded. "Already on it. You heading home?" "Not yet." I sat down at my desk and opened my notebook. Every missing child's case starts with the same question: who had time, motive, and opportunity? In Coldwater, the answers were usually closer than people wanted to believe. Around 2:00 a.m., the phone rang. "Detective Monroe." I answered. A man's voice came through, low and cautious. "You're looking for that Carter girl, right?" I sat up straight. "Who is this?" "You don't need to know that," he said. "But if you're smart, you'll check the old quarry outside town." "Near the water line?" "Why there?" I demanded. "Do you know something?" But the line was already dead. The quarry, that place had been abandoned for years, a scar of gray stone and rusted machinery that locals called the pit. Teenagers went there to drink. Adults avoided it. I grabbed my keys and gun. By the time I reached the quarry, fog was crawling along the ground like smoke. The beam of my flashlight cut through the mist. catching glimpses of broken fences and warning signs. Then I saw it, a small red ribbon tied to the handle of a rusted gate. Anna Carter had been wearing ribbons in her hair that day. The air in my lungs turned to ice. I drew my weapon and stepped forward slowly. Every sound magnified the crunch of gravel underfoot, the drip of water from the cliffs, the faint echo of wind through hollow metal. At the edge of the pit, I found tracks, small footprints mixed with larger ones, leading toward the water. Then, under the beam of my flashlight, something else, tire marks, fresh, the same width and tread as a pickup. Anna, I whispered into the dark, my breath shaking, "Where are you, kiddo?" And somewhere in the fog, far below the cliff edge, a faint sound drifted up, soft, muffled, and unmistakable. A cry. The cry came again, faint, broken by the wind. It could have been imagination, or the quarry echoing back my fear, but I knew what I'd heard. Anna. I shouted into the fog. "It's Detective Monroe. I'm here to help you." Silence. Only the wind answered. I climbed down the rocky slope, careful with each step. The mud was slick, and the rain had turned the quarry's face into something that looked alive, weeping streaks of brown water down its stone cheeks. My flashlight beam bounced off the wet surface, flashing over twisted bits of metal and broken pipes. Then it landed on something that didn't belong, a blanket, pink, with cartoon animals the kind a 7-year-old might sleep under. It was snagged on a piece of rebar near the bottom of the pit, half soaked, half buried in gravel. My pulse spiked. When I reached it, I saw the initials stitched on the corner in fading thread, A.C. Anna Carter. I knelt beside it, heart hammering. There were drag marks near, by small feet scuffed into the mud, a shoe imprint half, washed away by rain. It looked like she'd been pulled. Then the beam of my flashlight hit something else, a small wooden crate shoved behind a rusted water drum. I moved closer. It smelled like damp wood and oil. Inside, there was a doll, dressed in blue, its head cracked down the middle. That's when the nausea hit me. Someone had brought her here. Someone had watched this place long enough to know it was forgotten, and then they'd hidden what they didn't want found. I stood and scanned the cliff above. No movement, no sound, just fog and the faint hum of insects in the brush. But my instincts screamed at me I wasn't alone. By dawn, the search team had arrived. Flashlights cut through the mist like 100 small suns. The sheriff was barking orders, crime techs were stringing tape around the area, and I was standing there soaked to the bone, still staring at that blanket like it might answer me. "Anything else down there?" Sheriff Dale asked, voice tight. "Footprints, tire marks, this blanket, and a doll." I said, "Whoever took her brought her here, but I don't think they stayed." Dale sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "You think she's still alive?" "I heard her cry," I said. "He looked at me, or you thought you did." I didn't answer. I wasn't going to second. Guess the one thing keeping me going. Back at the station, Evelyn Carter sat across from me, wrapped in a blanket of her own. Her eyes looked empty now, like she'd cried herself dry. "Mrs. Carter," I said gently, "do you know anyone who drives a red pickup?" She hesitated. "Half the town does, but my brother-in-law, Paul, he's got one." "Why? Has Paul ever taken Anna anywhere?" Her brow furrowed. "Sometimes, yeah. He picks her up from school when I'm working." "Why? You don't think—" "I'm not sure of anything yet," I said quickly, though my gut already had its suspicions. "Where does he live?" "On Hollow Creek Road, just past the lumber yard." I stood. "Stay here?" "We'll talk again soon." The drive to Hollow Creek was quiet, too quiet, the kind of quiet that felt like the world was holding its breath. Paul Jensen's house sat at the edge of the woods, a single-story cabin with a detached garage, and sure enough, parked out front was a red Ford pickup. Mud still clinging to its tires, I parked a few yards away, radioed my location, and approached on foot. The place smelled of wet pine and cigarette smoke. When I knocked, the door opened almost immediately. Paul stood there tall, bearded, wearing a flannel shirt and the kind of smile that made my skin crawl. "Well, if it isn't Coldwater's finest," he said, leaning against the frame. "What brings you out here this early morning, Paul?" I said calmly, Mind if I ask you a few questions about your niece? Anna, his brow creased. She's missing, right? I heard about that on the radio. Terrible thing. Yeah, I said, watching him. Terrible. You been out near the old quarry lately? He blinked, then gave a short laugh. What would I be doing out there? That place is a dump. My eyes drifted to the mud on his boots, thick, dark, and speckled with fine gray dust. Quarry dust. You mind if I take a look around? I asked. Got a warrant? Not yet, I said, smiling slightly, but I can get one. He leaned closer, lowering his voice. You're wasting your time, detective. You people always are. Then he closed the door in my face. I stood there for a long moment, the sound of the latch echoing in my head. There was something about him, something too calm, too rehearsed, like he'd practiced what guilt should look like. I walked back to my car, called Dale. He's our guy, I said. Get me that warrant. Dale groaned. Monroe, slow down. We need hard evidence, not gut feelings. I've got tire tracks, footprints, and a red truck that matches our description. That's enough to start, but even as I said it, I knew it wasn't. Coldwater was small, too small to move without everyone knowing. If Paul had done it, he'd covered his tracks carefully, and if he hadn't, then someone else was out there, someone who wanted me looking the wrong way. That night I couldn't sleep. The sound of that cry kept replaying in my mind. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the swing still moving in the rain, heard Evelyn's voice whispering prayers in the cruiser. Around 3 a.m., I went back to my desk and opened the evidence photos again. That's when I noticed it's something I'd missed before. In the photo of the pink blanket, tucked in the corner near the stitching, was a tiny white thread, pulled loose and tangled in the fabric. It wasn't cotton. It was thicker, rougher, like upholstery thread. Truck seat material. I sat back in my chair, heart pounding. Maybe Paul's truck wasn't just a coincidence after all. But before I could move, my phone buzzed. A text. Unknown number. Stop digging, or the girl disappears for good. The text lingered on my phone, glowing like a warning in the dark. I read it again. Stop digging, or the girl disappears for good. My stomach twisted. Whoever was behind Anna's disappearance knew I was close, maybe too close, but backing down wasn't an option. Not now. I drove back toward Hollow Creek Road, the quarry heavy in my mind. The rain had finally stopped, but fog curled around the trees, ghostly and thick. I parked my car a few houses down from Paul Jensen's cabin, watching. Hours passed, nothing. Then I saw him, Paul's red truck, engine running, creeping toward the edge of town. I called Dale. He's moving. I whispered, I'm following. Monroe, wait, no. I interrupted. I can't. Not now. I tailed him carefully, keeping a safe distance. He turned onto an old logging road I'd seen only on maps. The forest closed in around him, and the truck slowed near a cluster of abandoned cabins, overgrown and rotting. I pulled my own car into the brush, gun ready, my heart hammered. Every step I took toward the cabins felt like walking through a dream I didn't want to wake from. The truck stopped. Paul got out, looking around cautiously, then disappeared behind one of the dilapidated cabins. I crept forward. The boards of the cabin creaked under my weight, and then I heard it. A soft whimper. Anna, I whispered, voice barely carrying over the wind. Yes, came the small reply. My heart leapt. I pushed the door open. Inside, shadows swirled, and there she was, Anna, huddled in a corner, soaked and shivering, clutching her blanket like a lifeline. Detective Monroe. I breathed. Her eyes widened. You found me, SHHH. I said, kneeling. It's okay, Anna. You're safe now. I grabbed her hand, helping her to her feet. That's when I heard Paul's voice, sharp and angry, from the other side of the cabin. You think you can take her from me? I spun, gun raised. Paul stepped into the doorway, eyes wild, hands clenched. I told you to stop. He shouted. You don't understand. She's mine. She's a child, not yours to control. I yelled, keeping my voice steady. Step back, Paul. For a moment he froze, then lunged. I fired once into the air, a warning shot. The sound echoed through the cabin, bouncing off broken walls. He staggered back, shouting, then stopped. Outside, sirens wailed. Dale and backup had finally arrived, surrounding the cabin. Paul froze, realizing he was trapped. Paul Jensen, hands where I can see them. Dale barked through the fog. He dropped his fists and stumbled out of the cabin. It's "It's not what it looks like," he muttered. "Save it for the judge," I said, keeping my eyes on him as deputies cuffed him. Later, back at the station, Anna was reunited with her mother. Evelyn held her so tight I thought they might never let go. Tears streaked down her cheeks, but this time they were tears of relief, not fear. "She's okay," Evelyn whispered to me, voice trembling. "Thank you. Thank you so much." I shook my head, exhausted but relieved. "You did your part, Mrs. Carter. Stay close to her and don't let anyone take that away again." As they left, I stepped outside. Coldwater was quiet now, the sun rising behind misty hills. The rain had stopped, but the air still felt heavy with what had happened, a reminder that darkness could hide anywhere, even in the most ordinary places. I looked back at the playground where it had all begun, the swing still swaying gently in the morning breeze. Anna's laugh might fill this place again someday, but the memory of her disappearance would linger. For me, the work never really ended. Every missing child, every scared parent, every shadow in the fog, they stayed with me. But for now, justice had been served. Anna was safe. Paul Jensen would answer for what he'd done, and in a town like Coldwater, that mattered. I pulled my coat tighter around me and walked back to my car, the mist curling around my boots, carrying the faint echo of a child's cry, now transformed into a laugh. The night had been long, but the morning promised something brighter, and in a small town where secrets festered like weeds, sometimes the truth was the only light worth holding on to. Please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.